How do you assess the progress over Vienna talks concerning the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran deal?
I'm encouraged by where we are right now. The talks in Vienna have gotten off to a very good start. The good news is that they're still talking. They didn't end in disarray. That the process that the Joint Commission, that is the commission that was set up by the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action and is headed up by a group of Europeans, that Joint Commission has been very effective in devising a mechanism where productive talks can be held, even though Iran refuses to talk directly to the United States. They don't want direct talks to the United States to be construed as reopening negotiations over the original agreement, over the JCPOA. And they say that's not up for renegotiation, so they don't want to talk to the United States. But what they did instead was hold two separate parallel talks. So the Europeans, the Russians, and the Chinese are talking to the Americans in one room in the hotel, and in another room in the hotel, I think it's actually on the same floor, the same group of people is talking to the Iranians. And of course, messages are being passed back and forth. They have two working groups set up. One will lay out exactly what the Iranians will do. Other will lay out exactly what the Americans will do. And this is extremely important. I mean, if you're going to do an agreement like this, you have to be crystal clear on who's doing what when. If they are successful, if these working groups are successful in getting agreement on these plans, and the U.S. agrees with the Iranian plan and the Iranians agree with the U.S. plan, you could see a pretty smooth re-entry into the agreement by the United States, and you could see then synchronized steps where the U.S. steadily lifts sanctions and the Iranians steadily cease some of their programs that go beyond what's permitted by the JCPOA. So I am cautiously optimistic, but it'll take several weeks. But the clock is ticking. We probably have to wrap this up by the end of April, because by May, the Iran presidential elections will be in full swing, and it'll almost be impossible for the government of President Hassan Rouhani to conduct the negotiations during the election season, primarily because of political opposition. His hardline opponents don't want Rouhani to get credit for successfully completing a deal. So he's going to be hampered by his domestic political opponents for partisan reasons, just the way President Biden is attacked by his Republican opponents in the United States for partisan political reasons. In both countries, partisan politics are taking precedent over the national interest.
Under these circumstances, how reasonable is it to trust the United States to uphold its part?
Well, we had hoped that Joe Biden was going to quickly re-enter the deal. You know, there's a lot of talk in this town about leverage, about the sanctions that Trump put in place, giving the U.S. leverage over Iran, but that's an illusion. You know, leverage is only useful if you have credibility. And right now, the U.S. has got some pretty low credibility. Donald Trump destroyed so much of our credibility in the world. And the real leverage comes from rejoining the deal. If you rejoin the deal, you're showing that the U.S. is once again going to keep its word, that the United States is once again going to follow the rule of law and not go off in a maverick direction, be completely unpredictable in what it's going to do next, which Donald Trump said was a virtue in international relations. It's exactly the opposite. But he didn't quickly re-enter the deal, and I think there's a recognition in the administration that they made a mistake, that they should have gone back to the deal sooner. Fortunately, they've recognized that mistake, and they're trying to make up for it now. But there's no way the United States is going to re-enter the deal without having a very clear understanding with Iran about what Iran's going to do to come back into compliance. And there's no way that Iran is going to come back into compliance without a very clear idea of what the U.S. is going to do. So the two really have to be synchronized. You really have to be looking at a roadmap that lays out exactly what everybody's going to do when, and then a synchronization where both countries start to take those steps with the support of the Europeans, the Russians, and the Chinese, who are acting as sort of the moderators and referees in this conflict?